Mhm. Mhm. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of Lessons from My Mother. Lesson number 76. We have, I would say, just a few more lessons remaining. I'd say we'd be done by lesson number 80. And then I have to interview a few friends, a remainder of friends. And I don't know if I'll reach the 100 mark, but maybe we could top it off around 90. If I do reach the 100 mark, then that'd be very nice, because then I could do 4 pages per lesson, and it becomes a nice thick book which Mum and I can co-author. Um, but let's see, that's still a few months away to go. Today is August 4th, 2024. So yeah, I think I'll be done in a month or two. I'll be done with this series, and obviously, I'm going to miss it. Not only because I get to speak to people and also celebrate my mother, but this has also become part of my life. So once this is done, I'll be starting its counterpart, which is films from my father, which is it's a much easier series, and I'll do top 100 movies over a span of 2 years or something. I can do something like that, and then turn that into a book too, and so forth. Today's lesson is about tell mama everything, and I'm very grateful to my older brother, Amar Pasha Siddiqui. Shout out to Amar Pasha Siddiqui, he's probably sleeping right now. He's in Doha, and he has 2 lovely daughters and a lovely, lovely wife who's like a sister to me. And he has 2 lovely daughters, one who is 8, should be 8, I'd say, and the other should be 5. Yes, Asian 5, I think. Yeah. And he's been teaching them lessons as a father, and obviously his wife is as well. But as a father, he's passing down lessons which we have ourselves learned. So he brought this topic up to me, that you have to mention something like this in one of your lessons too. And I said, oh, yeah, maybe I haven't talked about this enough, and maybe I should. So I talked about bullying while ago, perhaps a year or so ago. I talked about why bullying is wrong. Well, obviously, bullying is wrong, how you should deal with it, what you should do, blah, blah, blah. And I also talked about how, or if I didn't, I should talk about how today we don't even realize when we're bullying someone. Sometimes, even in America or South Asia or other parts of the world, there's a concept of hazing, that the new students here, and we're going to tease them and make their life miserable temporarily, in order to initiate them into this culture. And it's a horrid culture. Thank God it never happened to me. If it did, I might have broken a few faces, for sure. I don't put up with that sort of thing at all. In all good fun, I can have fun with you, but if you try to press me into a corner, I will fight back, for sure. That happens, but bullying also happens in the office, and bullying also happens in within your family. A husband can bully a wife can bully a husband, parents can bully their children on occasion, when they're older, might bully the parents. It's a horrid thing to do, but the problem is we're all against the term. We're all against the term. Oh, bullying is wrong. Nobody says no, bullying is necessary. Nobody says that. They don't say bullying is a good thing. They say bullying is wrong. But when you explain it in the context, they say, no, well, sometimes you have to. No, you don't. No, there are other ways of doing things too. But the topic I'm mentioning here is of my uncle, my mum's brother. So my mum and her younger brother were a year or so apart, and when they were in early childhood education, around year 1, year 2. So around year 2 or something, my mum started doing really well in school, exceptionally well in school. And that was triggered by one of her teachers, and I think I've talked about this story before. And if I haven't, I'm going to ask my mum to relay it. And her younger brother was doing the same. He was performing really well in school. And one day, a boy in his class decided to threaten him, bully him, saying, if you ever do this again, I'm going to beat you up. or I'm going to cause harm to you, or cause danger, and so forth. And my uncle got really afraid, and he stopped studying, and he started hanging out with friends who may not want what's best for you, especially at that age, and missing classes and performing horribly and arguing with teachers. And he turned all that passion and drive inwards, and he only told his family, like his parents and his siblings, about it years and years later. Years later, he told them. They said, "What?" And his mum, my grandmother, wasn't, she never went to school. She got married at a very young age, and she ran the house. So she would just run the house. Oh, he's back from school, give him food, tell him to do homework. So they didn't really dig into why he's performing badly. They just thought, oh, maybe he's having a difficult time. But when he told them, they said, why didn't you tell us earlier that somebody was bullying you, or somebody was annoying you or pressurizing you? So, oh no, I didn't know. I felt like this, I felt like that. And I remember my mum relaying this to us when even before we went to school, ever, and during school. So thankfully, I haven't been bullied. I was a bit of a little bully, or what do you call it? The small kid in class who has the biggest voice. Evident even now, I have one of the biggest voices. So I'd fight people and scream, and I'd pull their shirts and run away, and I'd cause a ruckus especially when I was 5, when I was 8. I'd be that guy. You can't catch me because I'm the fastest, and I'd punch you and run away, and I'd force you to do something. So I've done that, and then that got extricated out of my system thanks to my mum and my brothers. I was never at the receiving end, but two of my brothers were, and thankfully, this lesson from my mother had been instilled in all of us to share it. So whether they shared it at once or in a couple of weeks, it was shared. The younger brother, my other brothers, whoever has suffered through it, the lesson was shared, and swift action was taken. Swift. And swift action, I can tell you what it looks like. My mum, dressed in white overalls because she's a medical doctor, she'd show up to school and pick us up. And while she's picking us up, she was like, "Let's go to your class." I said, "Why? What happened?" "I need to speak to your teacher." And she'd be very like, and as a kid, you can't say, "No, I'm not going." She would just grab my hand and like, "Take me to your classroom." And I'd take her to the classroom. If the teacher wasn't there anymore, because school was over, she'd say, "Let's go to the staff room." And she'd go to the staff room and say, "I'm his mother. I need to speak to this teacher." And that teacher would show, "Yes, what's wrong?" "Well, you have a child in your..." First, she'll be very nice. She'll be like, "Hi, how are you? He speaks a lot about you, blah, blah." When the pleasantries are done, she'd say, "Well, he speaks about this child who's been bullying him or causing trouble, and this is not why we send our children to school. I work in this hospital, and we see so many examples of this happening and that happening, and we send people to this school, our kids to this school because we trust them, and the school is highly valued, and blah, blah, and we pay these inordinate amounts of fees. So teachers are looking after him, and I know you look after him, but then what can we do?" And she wouldn't go with a pointed finger. Obviously, that's counterproductive. But she'd go and develop this collaborative with the instructor. And the teacher would never say, "Well, you should teach him karate." She'd be like, "Oh, yes, that kid is horrible." Or, "Yeah, that kid fights with everyone. Let me look after this." And then the next day, or in the next coming few days, the teacher would be like, "Come here. Is he been bothering you?" And she'd be vigilant. And my mom would be so mindful of it. And then a couple of days later, when she'd come to pick us up from school, she'd say, "Where's that boy?" And she'd go and she'd befriend the boy. She's like, "Oh, this kid, oh, how are you, blah, blah." And she'd be so nice to the boy. "My son talks about you all the time. You look after him, right? You're such a good guy." And like she'd grab his shoulder and his hair, and she'd be very affectionate to him. And the child doesn't know what's going on. The child doesn't know that he's been manipulated. The child just knows, "Wow, this lady is so nice to me. My own mom beats the living daylights out of me, but this lady is so nice. I don't know why I'm rude to her son. Maybe I'll just be nice to him." And lo and behold, they'd end up changing. My mum hasn't gone and punched a kid in school at all, or beat them up or slap them. Not at all. She'd be all like, "Oh, this is the boy you're talking about," and she'd do a lot of positive affirmations in front of the child. And she'd say, "Yeah, look after my son. Speaks so highly of you, and I'd love to meet your mother and your father." Because, and then she would put it in the child's head that I can go over you, right? The buck doesn't stop with you. I can go over you. I'm at the hospital here, right? So if ever there's a problem, and she would use diplomacy so marvelously. It's at that time I'd just be like, "What's she doing? What is she doing? Just let's just go." But now, looking back at it, because I employ similar techniques now, unknowingly, I never go into a situation with the instinct to battle. I always go with the instinct to reconcile, to find common ground, to collaborate, to cooperate, and fight would be the final straw. I, in my power, would do everything I can that it doesn't get to the final straw. We'll find solutions where we can all adjust and where we can all um, benefit. And I'm strategic about it, and I go step by step, and I gradually escalate. And I learned that from my mum, and I'm so grateful for it. So that's how she would resolve it, and but it's based on this lesson of telling her everything. Even today, I'm in my late 30s, well, mid late 30s. I call my mum. Thank God I'm able to call her multiple times a week. I'd say 4 or 5 times a week. Tell her everything. Everything. What's happening at work? What's happening with my papers? What's happening with a potential love interest if there is one? What's happening with the gym? What's happening with friends? What's happening with the passport? What's happening? Everything in the span of 20, 25 minutes. And it's a conversation. She's fully interested and she's listening. And she's like, what happened with that? Oh, and then what happened? And she would, if I tell her something, for example, today is a Sunday, if I told her something on Thursday, she'd ask about it on Sunday. So, how's that thing? What you were doing that day? Where is it now? Oh, you've done this much. Okay, and what's left? Maybe you should do this. And she would add advice. You should do this now. And I say, okay, yeah, okay, because she knows me. She raised me. Even if she doesn't know my field of work, she knows me. So this is why I say, whenever I have friends and I say to them, and they're looking for advice, I say, why are you asking me? Ask your parents. That's why parents don't know about this. I said, they don't need to know about the context. They know about the actor. They know about you. They raised you. They made you. They know how you function. They know when you get anxious. They know when you get discouraged. They know what you feel when you're alone or what you feel when you're with them. They know everything. Go to them for advice. Then come to your friends, but go to them for advice. I don't want to worry them. They won't be worried, and don't say it in a manner which worries them. The information is rarely what worries parents. It's the way you say it. If I call my mom and say, "Oh, my car's destroyed, I don't know what to do," that's a different feeling to, yeah, no, don't worry about this, but something interesting happened today. Car got destroyed. Nothing to worry about. I've resolved it, but just wanted to. It's a whole different thing. Information is the same, but the packaging is different, right? So I always encourage my friends or my students or whoever I come in contact with. If your parents are alive and if you have siblings, they should be your first point of contact. And when you decide in your developed communities and societies, well, I don't need family anymore, I have a group of friends. That's wrong. Your group of friends is temporary. It's only been around recently. If you've been friends for 25 years, 20 years, fair enough. But if you've been friends with somebody for a year, clearly they can't know. They can't be as close. Time matters. Quantity of time also matters, not just the quality of time. And quality of time over a quantity of period, that's what family is, right? So I always encourage people to tell their parents and siblings everything. Everything. And you start developing that trust. Because people didn't do it, families fall apart a lot. A lot. Where children aren't speaking to parents, husbands to wives, siblings to each other. It's quite horrible. I don't find it interesting at all. So she encouraged this in us, and we still do it. And I know I do it more than my younger brother. My younger brother is slightly more private, but he does it too. But the advantage is he lives in England with them, so that's the lovely advantage. So they're part of his life more often than not in the first place, and other brothers as well. And we tell each other everything. So my brother called me yesterday and said, "So, what's up?" And I'd say, "I'm doing this, 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 this. This is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm worried about. What do you think about this?" For example, my elder brother called me yesterday, and he normally calls me while he's in motion. He has his phone in his hand. He's like, "What's up? Something's happening." And I said, "Well, I've been running and I've been gymming and everything. I'm still concerned about how quickly my weight loss is happening, what diet, just some nutrition questions." And he answered it in like 15 seconds. He's like, "No, no, you're fine. You're on the right track. Are you doing this? Yeah. Are you doing that? Yeah. Don't worry. It takes time. Go on." And that was enough for me to say, "Well, okay, we've had a talk about it." That's all I needed. I needed I'm not sure. No, no, go on. Okay. I just needed that. We need it every day. If you think you don't know yourself well enough. Because when I was 18, I used to think that I can conquer the world alone. Alone. Okay? Because you have all these hormones and all this energy and coursing inside you, and you say, "I can conquer the world, I can change the world, blah, blah, blah." And then you become 25 and you say, "The world's quite big, huh? But I still can do it. I'm this person." And then you hit your 30s and you start saying, "I don't have the energy I had when I was 18. I wonder how I'll conquer the world. Oof, I don't know." And then you reach your late 30s, 40s, if you're on the right track, and I'd like to think that I am, and you start thinking, "I can conquer the world, but not alone. I will conquer it and take the people I love along with me, because they may need me, but I also need them." And these constant scrutinizations of our own judgment, which we do. Am I doing the right thing? Was that a mistake? Should I do that again? Should I change this about myself? Should I be more aggressive? Should I be more assertive? Should I be more compliant? Am I saying the right all the time? You need at least one sounding board who knows you exceptionally well and doesn't have an ulterior motive. That's normally family. Normally. If you are going to argue against this and say, "Well, no, my family was like this," I'm sorry about your situation, but that's still a rarity. And I'm not talking about the American population, which is just 4% of the world. I'm talking about the whole world. So if you look at China, South Asia, that's nearly half the world right there. So I'm talking about things that I've seen and observed on my own. So you have to share what's going on in your life. And if you can't tell it to anyone, just tell it to your mum. Mum's instilled this in us because I think instinctively she also knew that one day she's going to be gone. And that's a reality that I wrestle with every day. I know that both my parents are going to be gone one day, and there's nothing I can do about it. I can only value and celebrate the time I had with them, and I'm so grateful that they're alive and healthy, and I hope they live till they're 100 or even till my last day, and they're healthy and happy. Um, but I think she knew this instinctively. So not only did she instill it in us that tell mom everything, she kind of built the culture of talk to each other because you're brothers. Like I've known my brothers for 37 years. I don't have a single friend who I've known that long. Balu Ilango, shout out Balu Ilango. Sorry, shout out Balu Ilango. I've known Balu for 21 years almost. He's my best friend. He's been my best friend for 21 years, but still not 37. Still not 37, but I've known my older brothers for 37 years. And I've known my younger brother for 32 years. And we've been thick as thieves, as almost. So when I call my younger brother up, I can talk about anything. Anything. And I can just say, "Are you free?" "Yep." Calling. "Yep." "How's it going?" He's very respectful. He's very, very obliged and very respectful and very, very clear. And when I call him, I start talking about this is happening and say, "Oh, why don't you do this?" I was like, "What about that?" "No, do that then." And he's very clear because he knows exactly what I'm like. Exactly. My other brothers are exactly the same, and I hope I'm able to do that for them too, and I try my best to do that too. So it generates that culture because nobody gets there alone. If you think they do, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm telling you now. None of your circumstances, none of your excuses would be strong enough to convince me, yeah, you have to go alone. Look at every prophet, look at every religious leader, look at every politician, look at every general, look at every entrepreneur. You get shown the story because in the media, it's much nicer to sell. Oh, one hero to save us all: Mark Zuckerberg and the rise of Facebook. Steve Jobs is back with Apple, and Barack Obama is the first biracial American president. Oh, he's good. No, Barack Obama is who he is strongly because of a loving wife and incredible parents. If you've read The Audacity of Hope, or what other book he wrote about his father, was Letters from My Father or something. Can't remember. That's a big factor. Donald Trump, big factor to his father, his mother, his sister, whatever. Um, Nobody gets there alone. No, they don't. So if you think they do, you don't know the world well enough. Honestly, you don't. You might think you do because you're arrogant or you're self-involved and say, "Well, I alone can." No, you can't. No, you can't. I've been through it. This whole mentality. Well, I'm telling you, I came to the other side. I was like, no, we need certain people. We don't need all the people. We need certain people, and it's fine to need people, and it's fine to be there for people when they need you. And to develop that sort of a connection, you need to tell people what's going on in your life, what's worrying you, what's making you happy, what you're aspiring to, and let them tell you. And it typically starts with your mother in childhood, and then your father, and then your siblings. Like I remember my elder brother, my second brother, Usman, lovely, lovely, lovely fellow. We've shared a lot of secrets over the years, which he wouldn't tell my other brothers, and my mum would find out later, and he'd end up telling her. But he'd say, "Oh, I did this." I was like, "Really? Ooh, tell me about it." And we still have that. I can call him. Well, what time is it in England? I can call him right now, and if he answers, I'll say, "I have to tell you something." You're like, "What? What?" And I'd say something, and he's like, "Really? Wow!" And it'll be like he's sitting here. He's sitting here, and I'm telling him a secret. Try to build that. For the love of God, try to build that. I have the great fortune of being friends with people who are only children, who just have one sibling, and friends who have many siblings. And thankfully, I have three lovely brothers. And I'm very grateful to have them. And I encourage all my friends to share information. And the ones who grow up alone and solitary, it's really hard for them. It's really hard for them to open up and trust others because they haven't grown up with siblings. It's much harder. And now somebody would come to me, "Well, I had a very bad sibling and that shut me in a corner." Man, that's an exception. Stop bringing the exception when we're discussing the rule. Okay? And stop focusing on the variable when we're discussing the analogy. Okay? Come on. Anyway, this is the lesson for today. Tell mama everything, and tell dad everything, and tell your siblings, and you develop this zone of trust and faith and hope in each other. And I wish you all the best of luck. Have a wonderful remainder of your weekend, and I shall see you next week.